This is Heart of the Guardians, where stories of love, courage, and destiny come alive from the dust of forgotten lands. So lean closer, and listen, because this one begins with pain, but ends with redemption. The year was 1883. The town of Silver Creek, Wyoming, wasn't kind to outsiders. Especially not to someone like Mei Lin, a young Chinese woman who had come to America with dreams of freedom, only to find a world built on hate and suspicion. She had arrived 2 years ago with her brother, both working in the laundry business set up on the edge of town. Their hands were raw from the washboard, their lungs choked from steam and coal smoke. But they endured, quietly, humbly, believing that hard work might one day buy them acceptance. They were wrong. It started small, whispers behind her back, coins thrown instead of handed, men laughing as she bowed her head in silence. But one afternoon, it turned brutal. She had gone to the general store to deliver fresh linen. 3 drunken cowhands were there, their boots caked with mud and cruelty. "Hey, China girl," one spat, blocking her path. "Ain't you supposed to bow when white folks speak?" Mei Lin clutched the basket tighter, her eyes down. "Please," she whispered, "I just work here." But that wasn't enough for them. One of the men snatched the basket, tossing it across the floor. Another shoved her against the counter, laughing as her hair fell loose. The third raised his hand, and before she could even cry out, the slap echoed through the store. "Teach her some manners," the first one growled. And they did. They beat her until she could barely stand, until her lip bled and her heart broke. Then suddenly, a voice thundered through the door. "That's enough." The room froze. The man who had spoken filled the doorway like a storm. 6'4", broad shoulders, hat pulled low, a rancher with eyes that didn't flinch. His name was Elias Carter, though most called him the Giant. He owned the largest ranch west of the river, known for his wild horses and his quiet temper. But that day, his silence shattered. "What in God's name are you doing?" Elias demanded, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. "She don't belong here," one of the cowhands sneered. "Just teaching her her place." Elias's jaw tightened. "Her place," he repeated softly. Then his hand shot out, and in one motion, he lifted the man by the collar and threw him into a pile of barrels. The others stepped back fast. Elias turned to Mei Lin. Her face was bruised, her eyes wide with terror. He saw something there, not just pain, but dignity. The kind that refused to die. He took off his coat and draped it around her shoulders. Then he leaned close, voice low enough for only her to hear. "Act like you're mine." She froze, confused, but something in his tone, firm, protective, final, made her nod. He straightened and looked at the men. "This woman," he said slowly, "works for me now. Anyone touches her again answers to me." Silence filled the room. No one dared to argue. Elias took her arm gently and led her outside. The cold wind hit her face, mixing with the warmth of his coat. "Why?" she whispered, barely able to walk. "Because," Elias said quietly, "I don't stand by when the weak are beaten." He took her to his ranch that night, a sprawling stretch of land at the foot of the Red Hills. The ranch house was old but solid, smelling of cedar and smoke. His housekeeper, Martha, nearly dropped her lantern when she saw the girl. "Good Lord, Elias, what happened to her?" "Trouble in town," he said simply. "She's staying here till she heals." Martha nodded. She had seen the way Elias's eyes softened when he looked at Mei Lin. And she didn't ask questions. For days, Mei Lin slept, feverish and frightened. Elias would leave food by her door, never entering, never speaking more than necessary. He didn't want to scare her. But one night, as a storm raged outside, she came downstairs wrapped in a blanket. He was by the fire, repairing a bridle. Her voice trembled. "Why did you help me?" He looked up. "Because nobody else would." She hesitated. "People, they hate me for what I am." Elias sighed. "Then they're fools. My mother was Cherokee. I know what hate looks like." For the first time, Mei Lin smiled faintly. Two souls, both outcasts, had found each other. Weeks passed. She began helping around the ranch, cooking, tending to the garden, mending clothes. She moved quietly, but her presence changed everything. The ranch, once lonely and silent, now felt alive again. Elias would sometimes catch her humming softly in Chinese while hanging laundry. He never understood the words, but he understood the peace in her voice. And slowly, something grew between them. Something unspoken. One morning, he found her out by the barn, struggling to lift a bucket. "Here," he said, taking it easily. She laughed. "You're strong." He smiled. "You're brave." Her eyes met his, and the air between them shifted, but neither said a word. Then, one afternoon, trouble came riding. The same men from town, the ones who had beaten her, arrived at the ranch. They were drunk, angry, and full of hate. "Carter," one yelled, "we heard you took the China girl. You hiding her here." Elias stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand. "She's under my protection," he said. "You've got one chance to leave." They laughed. "You think we'll let her take work from white folk? You think she belongs here?" Elias cocked the rifle. "She belongs where she's safe. And that's here." But before he could react, one man swung his gun and fired. The shot whistled past his shoulder, hitting the doorframe. Elias fired back, quick, precise, hitting the ground inches from their boots. The message was clear. The men turned pale and rode off fast, cursing his name. When he turned back, Mei Lin stood behind the door, trembling. He lowered his weapon, his voice gentle. "You're safe now." She ran into his arms, sobbing. That was the night she realized she had stopped being afraid. Because Elias Carter had given her something stronger than fear. He had given her worth. The next morning, she came to him as he saddled his horse. "I want to earn my keep," she said. "You already do," he replied. "No," she insisted. "You saved me. I want to be useful. Teach me." He raised an eyebrow. "Teach you what?" "To ride." He laughed softly. "You ever been on a horse?" "No," she said, "but I'm not afraid anymore." So he taught her. Day after day, she practiced, falling, laughing, getting back up. By the third week, she was riding beside him like she was born for it. The townsfolk began to notice. They whispered again, but this time differently. Some said she was his servant. Others said she was his wife. Neither corrected them. One evening, as the sun burned low over the hills, Elias and Mei Lin sat by the corral, watching the horses. "Do you ever wish you could go back?" he asked. "To China," she said softly. "There's nothing for me there. My brother died on the railroad. America is all I have now." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe this could be home." She looked at him, really looked. "You make it feel like home," she whispered. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Mei Lin," he said quietly, "if you stay here, you won't be alone again." Tears filled her eyes. "I already know that." And beneath that dying sun, they kissed, tender, hesitant, but real. But peace never lasted long in Silver Creek. 2 nights later, the ranch was set ablaze. Elias woke to the smell of smoke, flames licking the barn. He shouted for Mei Lin. She ran out, coughing, clutching a bucket of water. They came back. She cried. Elias grabbed his rifle and ran into the fire. The men who had attacked her were back, torches in hand, rage in their eyes. "You should have stayed out of this, Carter," one yelled. "Not while I'm breathing," Elias roared. Shots rang through the night. One man fell, another fled. Elias took a bullet to the arm but kept fighting, swinging his rifle like a club. When it was over, the barn was gone, but the ranch still stood. And Mei Lin was safe. She knelt beside him, tears streaking through soot. "You're hurt," he smiled weakly. "It'll take more than that to stop me." She pressed his hand to her heart. You didn't just save me, she whispered. You saved who I am. The next morning, the sheriff came. The men responsible were arrested, thanks to Elias's testimony. And for the first time, the town looked at Mei Lin not as an outsider, but as the woman who had stood beside the giant and helped defend his land. Weeks later, when Elias recovered, he came to her with something in his hand. A small silver ring. It ain't fancy, he said softly, but I'd be proud if you wore it. She stared at it, then at him. You mean? He nodded. I told you once to act like you were mine. I meant it then to protect you. Now, I mean it forever. Her tears fell freely. Yes, she whispered, I'll be yours. And in the same town that once spat on her name, Mei Lin walked proudly down the church aisle in white lace, hand in hand with the man who had seen her heart before her face. The townsfolk stood as the bells rang, some in silence, some in awe, because they were witnessing something stronger than hate, love that defied an entire world. Years later, travelers passing through Silver Creek would tell the tale of the giant rancher and the Chinese woman who tamed his solitude, of how they built a life from ashes, raising horses, and later, children who carried both East and West in their blood. And if you ever rode near the Red Hills at sunset, you might still see two figures standing by the fence line, one tall and broad, one small and graceful, watching the world they fought to make their own. Because love doesn't ask where you're from. It only asks who you'll stand for when the world turns cruel.